On today's America Uncovered, Chick-fil-A on a Sunday? New York looks into reparations for slavery. And the most repetitive stories of the year, proving we're definitely already living in the Matrix, and it's glitching out. That and more on this week's headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Ever crave a Chick-fil-A but realize it's Sunday and they're not open? Well, that may now be a thing of the past because Chick-fil-A might be opening on Sundays. They haven't decided that, but New York may force them to. A bill headed to the New York State Assembly would force some Chick-fil-A locations to stay open on Sundays. But before any of you New Yorkers get all excited and plan on skipping church in favor of grabbing waffle fries, which to be fair, are a miraculous heavenly creation in their own right, you should know that this bill would only affect about 7 Chick-fil-A restaurants located in rest stops and transportation facilities owned and operated by the New York State Thruway Authority. And this bill might not even affect those 7 locations, but instead any future Chick-fil-A's that open along the Thruway. The sponsor of the bill, Assemblyman Tony Simone, says while there is nothing objectionable about a fast food restaurant closing on a particular day of the week, service areas dedicated to travelers is an inappropriate location for such a restaurant. Allowing for retail space to go unused 1/7 of the week or more is a disservice and unnecessary inconvenience to travelers who rely on these service areas. So he doesn't want fast food places and government-owned rest stops to be non-operational. If that's the case, he should add an addendum to the bill to force McDonald's to finally fix their ice cream machines, which are non-operational 11 days out of the week. Yes, 11. They're so broken they even broke the space-time continuum. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham had a completely normal response to this bill, reacting to it on X by saying, "This is war." Oh, I meant a completely normal response for him. He loves war. Graham even once said he was going to blow up the frickin' place to congressmen that were impeding an increase to military spending. Graham says if the bill goes forward, he will introduce legislation withholding federal funding from any city or state that forces Chick-fil-A to open on Sundays, framing it as a freedom of religion issue. However, he left out just one tiny little detail. The fact that this bill wouldn't force all Chick-fil-A's in New York to remain open, just a tiny few in government-operated rest stops, if it even applies to those. Graham even received a reader's context box on a post he made on X, where he visited a Chick-fil-A location in New York that would be unaffected by the bill. He said he did this to send a message, and that message is the only thing he loves more than war is chicken tenders. While Graham is seemingly fanning the flames of the culture war, buried deep within his theatrics and drama, he has a point. Chick-fil-A is closed on Sunday for religious reasons. Forcing a business, even just a few potentially future locations, to operate against their religious beliefs is a violation of the First Amendment and a potentially slippery slope. This could go to court. I know we all wish Chick-fil-A were open on Sundays, but I never thought the Supreme Court would have to rule on it. What's next? Is SCOTUS going to decide whether or not HBO should redo the final season of Game of Thrones? As much as I wish that would happen, is that really the government's role? But either way, I think everyone just needs to chill here. To quote the eternal wisdom of philosopher Bart Simpson, don't have a cow, man. Specifically this cow. And after the break, an attempted swatting of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Welcome back. A man in New York attempted to swat the home of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Greene explains, "I was just swatted. This is like the 8th time on Christmas with my family here. My local police are the greatest and shouldn't have to deal with this." Swatting is when someone makes a prank call to emergency services to try and bring armed officers to a particular address. The man who made the call against Greene said he killed his girlfriend and would kill himself, then gave Greene's address. The Rome, Georgia Police Department realized the call was a hoax when they recognized the address and didn't send officers to the house. And even though many treat it like a prank, an Ohio gamer got prison time for a swatting that led to a man's death. The Supreme Court rejected special counsel Jack Smith's request to fast-track hearing arguments on whether or not Donald Trump has presidential immunity against the charges he's facing in his trial over the January 6th riot. The Supreme Court justices didn't explain their reasoning behind this decision, but there were no dissents, which is notable since when was the last time the Supreme Court, when was the last time 9 people in general didn't disagree on something. These days, if you ask 9 people where they want to go for dinner, you're going to get 9 answers, 3 shouting matches, and a fist fight. This will likely delay Trump's trial, which was initially set for March 4th, the day before the Republican primary Super Tuesday. And if you're thinking Jack Smith rushed to get this particular trial date, you're wrong. Because he wanted the trial to take place even earlier, on January 2nd. This Supreme Court ruling is a victory for Trump, and it put him in such a great mood that he understood the true meaning of Christmas, and his heart grew 3 sizes that day. Just kidding, he lashed out in a Christmas Day tirade on Truth Social, accusing his enemies of trying to destroy America before saying, "May they rot in hell," and also wishing them a Merry Christmas. So he was angry, bitter, and depressed over the holidays. Wow. Actually, I think Trump really did learn the true meaning of Christmas. God bless us, everyone. New York Governor Kathy Hochul signed a bill that will create a commission to study the generational impacts of slavery and make recommendations on possibly giving monetary reparations to Black residents.
Now, if this committee can present a viable path forward to helping the descendants of New York slaves and addressing the harms and disparities that exist in education, that exist in housing, that exist in health care, that exist in the environment, that, my friends, will lift all of us up.
This is similar to a reparations task force commissioned in California in 2020, which, after 2 years of study, recommended paying up to $1.2 million in reparations to eligible Black California residents who are deemed to suffer from generational racial injustices. If the proposal becomes law, it could actually cost California $800 billion. But as everyone knows, California never makes mistakes, and copying everything they do is a brilliant strategy. It's kind of like modeling your life after Ezra Miller. What could possibly go wrong? And after the break, the most repetitive stories of 2023. Welcome back. Texas has begun flying illegal immigrants to sanctuary cities, starting with Chicago. And if you're thinking, wait, hasn't this already been happening? No, they were busing them. Now they're flying. This is like a sad remake of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. The remaining stories I'm going to cover in this episode are all going to sound familiar because even though they just happened, these types of stories have been recurring all throughout the year. Such as nurses at Cedars-Sinai Marina Del Rey Hospital in California going on a 3-day strike. It seems like 2023 has become the year of union strikes, with writers and actors in Hollywood, as well as the United Auto Workers, demanding better pay and more job security. And speaking of job security, Pizza Hut laid off thousands of California workers, adding to the pile of stories of mass layoffs that have been occurring all year. But if you're worried all these stories of worker unrest and employee firings means the economy is bad, don't be. Because the media says it's doing great. Either that or the bad economy is your fault. The U.S. military struck 3 facilities believed to be used by Hezbollah in retaliation for a series of attacks on a U.S. base in Iraq. Wait, the U.S. military fighting in the Middle East? I said I'd be looking at some of the most repetitive stories of the year, not of my lifetime. Please find someone that loves you as much as America loves the military-industrial complex. 2023 was an especially tough year for Disney, which produced several films that flopped at the box office in the company's 100th year in business. Superhero movies also suffered, with the majority of them underperforming or flat-out bombing. While some might blame wokeness for all these flops, it could also have something to do with the fact that people might not be enthused seeing their 97th superhero movie or the same formula that a studio's been using for 100 years. On the bright side, the U.S. could potentially save itself a lot of money in military aid by just sending future Disney flicks to Ukraine and Israel, since those are some of the biggest bombs America has to offer right now. Speaking of Israel, a hotline has been launched for college students to report incidents of antisemitism on campuses. Israel's war with Hamas has led to a rise in antisemitism, particularly on college campuses. And college presidents haven't exactly handled it in the best way possible.
And Dr. Gay, at Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment, yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
What's the context?
Targeted as an individual, at an individual.
It's targeted at Jewish students, Jewish individuals.
While the University of Pennsylvania's president and several leaders resigned over their disastrous remarks on whether calls for genocide are considered harassment, depends on context. Harvard has doubled down and insists on supporting its president, Claudine Gay. Speaking of doubling down, just as Trump's name has been put back on the primary ballot in Colorado, Maine has jumped onto the bandwagon of taking Trump's name off their primary ballots. And that's a perfect encapsulation of America in 2023. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. And we keep seeing the same types of stories over and over and over again from people unwilling to admit fault and make a change. But I don't want to end the year on such a dour note. I want to enter 2024 with some hope. It is possible for people to admit their mistakes and change, even when they're seemingly insane. Case in point, Ye, the former Kanye West, made a post on his Instagram page in Hebrew where he apologized to the Jewish community for any pain he may have caused and said he wants to learn from his experience to ensure greater sensitivity and understanding. Yes, Ye has admitted he was wrong and vowed to try and do better. This definitely proves we're already living in the Matrix, and there's a major glitch in it. And in my ongoing attempt to talk about things YouTube doesn't want me talking about, I've hidden a conversation on incels and the horrors of modern dating in a review of the game Outlast Trials. And America Uncovered wouldn't exist without your support. Click that orange button to support us on Patreon. All it takes is $1 an episode, and you can set a monthly limit. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.